Hi everyone, it's Natalie and welcome back to my channel. Okay, so if you made it to this video, this is actually my second time posting a video review for this book. The first part of this video will be exactly the same as my spoiler-free video on this book, but then it will jump to the spoilery section of my thoughts, and I will put a timestamp above of where you can jump. If you've already seen my spoiler-free thoughts, then you can just go ahead and jump to that time to see the spoilers. But today I'm going to be reviewing the Mary Shelley Club, so let me read to y'all the summary of this book. New girl Rachel Chavez is eager to make a fresh start at Manchester Prep, but as one of the few scholarship kids, Rachel struggles to fit in, and when she gets caught up in a prank gone awry, she ends up with more enemies than friends. To her surprise, however, the prank attracts the attention of the Mary Shelley Club, a secret club of students with one objective: come up with the scariest prank to orchestrate real fear. But as the pranks escalate, the competition turns cutthroat and takes a life of its own. When the tables are turned and someone targets the club itself, Rachel must track down the real-life monster in their midst, even if it means finally confronting the dark secrets from her past. I rated this book 3.5 stars. Now, don't let that deter you, because genuinely I had a lot of fun reading this book. This book is very, very gripping. I definitely think it's a page turner. From the very start, I was engaged in the story. I was interested in what was going on. I was honestly the most engaged I've been in a book that isn't a romance in a while, because honestly, most of the time I can speed through a book very quickly when it's a romance, but with any other genre, I struggle a lot to really be consumed by the story, and this did that very easily. Although I wouldn't say that the majority of it is super fast paced, because I don't think it has a very rapid pace. It certainly always has something going on that keeps your attention. So I think in a very subtle but also very clever way, it keeps you interested in what's going on without making you feel like there needs to be something big and terrifying going on each page. I do think it has those moments where it kind of gives you those small scares, and it kind of lifts up the tension and releases it in a nice way, and then it just keeps building and building and building the tension in a way that leads to the final resolution really well. Something else that I liked about this book is the humor in it. It had a lot of passages that were very funny. From very early on, I was highlighting passages in orange, which is my annotation color for funny moments, because I really do like the author's humor. As someone who is new to horror but kind of enjoys it, but has very particular likes when it comes to horror, I definitely enjoyed this because it had the humor, not exactly like in Scream, but that reminded me of it. And so being able to make those parallel connections made this a far more enjoyable experience. So overall, the humor definitely made this a very enjoyable read for me. Now, as always, the characters are where it's at for me in any reading experience, and this book certainly delivered on that front. Our main character, Rachel, was a superb lead for this book. I really enjoyed that we were following this character that was trying to get her agency back. So much of this book is about Rachel trying to take control of her life. After she goes through a traumatic experience, she just wants to live her life like she doesn't have to be afraid all the time. It's why she started getting into scary movies, because she feels like if she watches enough of them, she will stop being so afraid. And so that coping mechanism turns even worse when she joins the Mary Shelley Club, because even though she now is the perpetrator basically of fear, she is the one causing fear in others, there's a slippery slope there that when she starts realizing she's on it, she starts questioning, why am I so invested in this club? Why do I so badly want to cause others fear as a way to compensate for my own fear? So that was great. Rachel was fantastic and a fantastic lead. Rachel's best friend, Sandra, is also a really enjoyable character. She is kind of the complete opposite of Rachel, and that makes their dynamic fun because Sandra is very talkative. She's always chatting. She always knows what's going on in the school, like the rumor mill. Like, she's in that rumor mill. She knows everything. And it's great because she sees this strangeness in Rachel and doesn't criticize it, doesn't think it's all that strange. She still stays with Rachel and she still basically sticks by her side and trusts her. And so their dynamic was just very wholesome and sweet. And so that's why I liked it. That's why I liked Sandra. She was a super chill character, and I think a character this story needed in order to balance out the more tense moments and to create this very real thing of how life is not constantly horror or constantly just being an average teen. And so Sandra was that bridge of making Rachel still have a teen experience, a normal teen experience, while at the same time having this more abnormal teen experience with the Mary Shelley Club. Speaking of the Mary Shelley Club, Bram, Felicity, Freddie, Thayer, they were all kind of awesome in their own way. I really liked them. Thayer was for sure one of my favorites because he was a very energetic character. He's one of those characters that makes me feel like if he were a real person, he'd be the kind of person that you can barely restrain from jumping off the walls because he's so full of energy and he's just so funny and nice, and he tries to keep things lighthearted. And so that's kind of why I liked him in this club, in the club dynamic. I really enjoyed Thayer because, yeah, he was not exactly the comic relief because, like I said, there's just a lot of humor all throughout the book, but he was definitely the light tone in this club in particular. And that's why I loved him, because I just gravitated towards those characters. And so his interactions with Rachel were very sweet and nice. I really was a big fan of the scenes where they were not spending time with the Mary Shelley Club, where they were just working together. I thought those interactions were very wholesome, just wholesome, and so I liked them. Felicity, on the other hand, was just an icon, pure icon vibes. We love her. We love her character design. We love how she interacted with the world. The girl was wild. She was wild and I loved it. She was definitely the oddball in the group and I was into it. And even though there was kind of animosity between Rachel and Felicity as the two girls in the Mary Shelley Club, it never felt like just straight up girl hate or anything like that. If anything, there was a little bit of girl hate going on with Rachel and Lux, but that was actually a more complex dynamic and went way beyond just the like popular girl versus the weird new girl. So that again was its own thing. So the interactions between Rachel and Felicity were interesting because it was definitely like they were trying to show off. They were trying to one-up one another. And so I like that. I like tension in relationships. I think it makes things interesting and compelling. Okay, so I left Bram and Freddie for last on purpose because they, oh my gosh. They were like two sides of the same coin. Both of them I did not trust from the very start. Both of them were sketchy as hell from the start. I wanted to trust them, but I also didn't want to trust them. I loved them, but I also kind of hated them. They both had so much that made them interesting on their own, but that also made it so that you were kind of with Rachel in this uncertainty of like, can I trust either of these boys? Are they telling the whole truth? What are they hiding? So like honestly, even though this did have kind of like love triangle vibes, not completely completely, not entirely. It didn't 100% commit to that because Bram had a girlfriend. So it didn't 100% commit to the love triangle. But even though the vibes were there, I enjoyed them because neither Bram nor Freddie, I could be sure I could trust that they were telling Rachel the truth, that they were being genuine with her. With Bram, we have that he's very standoffish. He's very, very cold and only with slight sprinkles of warmness, like not even hot and cold, sprinkles of warmness. And so he has these interactions with Rachel that you're kind of like, this guy's a jerk, but I'm also kind of interested in why. And then with Freddie, you had this thing where he was very charming, very nice, very sweet, but then he kind of let things happen that you were like, why doesn't he just stand in Rachel's corner? Why does he stick to the rules so much? And then why does Bram keep saying bad things about him even though he's only ever been nice to Rachel? So we have both of these characters that are acting very strange, and you're kind of like, can I trust them? Can I? So honestly, it was great. Even though it played mind games with me, it was great. I loved Bram and Freddie and the conflict they created within me. So if I have a con to mention to this book here, it would be that it reads kind of outdated. It makes certain music references that I'm kind of like, why would a teen nowadays be listening to that? Why would they care about that? So that would be the only thing. Like sometimes the teenage speak just didn't feel legit. I just sometimes felt like I was in a different time because it did not compute to me why they would listen to certain music or why they would say certain things. But other than that, honestly, solid book. Finally, what I enjoyed about this book is that we follow Rachel, a working class kid, in this very high-end rich kid school. And so we have those very clear dichotomies of her feeling kind of out of place because she hasn't grown up with all this money, with all these resources, and everyone around her is kind of alien because of it. But to some extent, the Mary Shelley Club is an equalizer because except for Freddie and her, the rest of the club members are rich, but since they all love horror movies so much, that kind of brings them together and it makes them come together for a common goal and on common ground, more or less. But at the same time, as things start getting darker, you start seeing how they're not on equal footing at the end of the day because of their economic disparity between them. So overall, I love that this included that conversation in here on privilege and wealth and how you navigate spaces that are so different from what you grew up in. So yeah, that's about it for my non-spoilery thoughts. So okay, like for real, seriously, if you don't want spoilers, just don't watch, because I'm going to talk about who the antagonist of this book is, and I don't want to ruin that for y'all if you haven't read this book. So like only watch this if you don't care about spoilers or if you've already read the book. So the antagonist of this book is Freddie, and that deeply upset me. I was so frustrated by that. The main reason was because the interactions between Freddie and Rachel were so sweet, so nice, so wonderful. I was like, I have these two Latinx kids who are working class and they're bonding together because they're with a bunch of rich kids that are insufferable, and having that torn from my hands was deeply upsetting. I was so upset. I felt like it was coming. Like I had a feeling like when we had the scene where, again, major spoilers, when we had the scene that Sandra dies but Freddie is with Rachel, so you're like, it couldn't have been Freddie because Freddie's right here. I was like, it's going to be Freddie's fault. I'm like, I don't know how, I don't know why, but it's going to be Freddie. And it was, in a lot of ways, Freddie's fault. And I was just so upset. Honestly, okay, I'm going to be very, very straightforward. While I was reading, the twist I was hoping for would be that Freddie and Rachel would join forces and turn against the rich kids in the Mary Shelley Club. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm too committed to my eat the rich mentality to have wanted anything less. So when they didn't do that, I was just so frustrated because, again, I'm not against making Freddie the antagonist entirely. I would have just preferred if Rachel and Freddie joined forces to be antagonistic towards everyone else. So the fact that it was Freddie turning on Rachel was just a big no for me. I was like, how can you turn against your fellow folk like this? I'm like, how can you turn against your fellow Latinx who is also working class? How can you side with this club that literally, because you said it yourself, Freddie, this club, if you fucked up, you would have nothing to catch you. You would have no one to support you. So I'm like, why are you standing with all of these rich little kids doing all this fucked up shit when if you make a mistake, the only one who's gonna pay is you? Why? I don't get it. I don't get it. But as you can see, that's a very personal taste. Like, how can I hate on this book at all for not giving me the twist I wanted? Like, that's ridiculous. So that's why this is still a 3.5 star book for me, because I did enjoy it. I did have a good time. I just felt like, one, it could have led up to the reveal a little bit better. And once we had the reveal, it was kind of cheesy. Like, the things Freddie was saying was kind of cheesy and whatever. So that's kind of why I docked down the rating. But overall, I didn't hate the book at all, and I'm actually looking forward to getting my own copy of it because it was a good time. I just wanted a different reveal, which, you know, it happens. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm not going to deny it. Also, part of the reason why I wanted the twist to be that Rachel and Freddie joined forces is because I recently finished watching the 3rd season of Killing Eve, and I love Killing Eve. I love the possibility of these two women just being bad together. They're bad for each other and they can do bad things. And I love that. So, like, again, I'm not opposed to the dark vibes. I'm just like, I just like the two love interests coming together to do bad together, I guess. And so that's on me. That's on me for craving that so badly, and that I put that onto this book even though it didn't have to be. So yeah, that's the primary reason why this didn't get a higher rating, but again, I would still highly recommend it. I had a lot of fun reading it. Again, if you're here, you've probably already read the book, so I definitely would be open to a conversation in the comments about what you thought about the fact that Freddie was the antagonist. Did you see it coming? Did you not see it coming? What did you think about it? After hearing my thoughts, do you now think, man, that kind of would have been neat? Too bad it didn't happen. Let me know. I'm a curious person. So yeah, that's everything I have to say. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you would like to follow me on any of my social media, I will have the links to that down below in the description. But for now, see you next time.